Class War of the Titans. In the mid-'80s, before Megadeth had recorded Peace Sells But Who's Buying, the two future Altitudes and Attitude bandmates met for the first time at the Biltmore Hotel in Providence, Rhode Island. Megadeth was broke, hungry, and touring in a motorhome. Ellefson remembers how fancy Anthrax seemed by comparison.
Let's go all the way back. Take me back to how and when and where the two of you met for the first time. Because, of course, as a fan, I think about, Clash of the Titans and all the awesome things.
I remember the first time I think Frank and I met, first time I saw Anthrax play was actually out at the country club. I think Dave and I went to, and this would have been probably, 83, 84? 84 maybe, yeah. And saw them play. Dan Locher, I guess, would have been in the band. I didn't really know anything about them other than Dave had talked about them when he was out in New York with Metallica. He had mentioned this fast little band called Anthrax, so that's kind of how I knew about him. But then I remember right before I think we recorded the Peace Sells album, which for Combat, actually, not even for Capitol, we were on the East Coast staying at a hotel called the Biltmore up in Providence, Rhode Island. The Biltmore, right? And it was nice. I mean, for a bunch of lowly thrash guys to afford a nice hotel was kind of nice, right? I think it was because the venue paid for it or something. But we played there. We were very poor, and we were in a motorhome. And I walk outside. It's cold as hell out because I think it was literally January, February. And up pulls a tour bus, and the frickin' Anthrax guys get out, out of a tour bus, right? Dressed in all peat coats, looking all nice and healthy and rich, right? You guys suck, man. How come we're so poor, right?
Frank Bello needs therapy. These Big Four bassists are both regarded as two of the nicest guys in heavy metal. But as the Altitudes and Attitude records reveal, Mr. Bello isn't without a dark side.
Guy, I remember Clash of the Titans. In fact, you could probably see some of that Ricky Rackman Headbangers Ball footage from Madison Square Garden when he came out on Clash of the Titans in 1991, if anybody was alive during that period. I realize I tell these stories, and this was years ago. Yeah. Millennials weren't even born yet, I'm telling. I am that guy now. I remember back in 91, Pre-Nirvana. Before Nirvana. There was life before Nirvana. But remember, Frank was always the happy-go-lucky guy. And then when we started to bring songs in for this, I realized what a twisted, dark dude he is. And he really needs therapy, which is why we formed the band.
Nobody does Gene and Paul like Frank. The music of Kiss is part of the common language between Frank and David, who were thrilled to have the spaceman himself, recent MI Conversation series guest Ace Frehley, guest on their new record. Anthrax has covered plenty of Kiss songs over the years, including Love Her All I Can, which was actually produced by Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley.
Here's a great moment. We're doing background. I think it's me, Scott, and I don't know if Charlie's saying. It was just me and Scott doing backgrounds for the chorus, and Paul and Gene are at the soundboard. Now, think about the kids that we are. We were like, so just to calm myself down, I started doing impressions of these guys.
Oh, man.
So to them? In front of them?
To them. So I wanted to, because I was nervous, to be honest. I was just nervous to sing in front of Paul Stanley.
You're basically every comedian when they meet Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah.
You start doing it to them, yeah.
The only thing I knew, my defense, and to calm myself down was start talking like, Paul, I don't know which one I'm gonna do. What note should I do? And Gene would laugh. Oh, Frank Bello, that's very, very funny. And he would come back to me and Frank Bello, that's very, very. Do you do Gene Simmons? And I would go, you're a powerful and attractive man, And it would go back and forth. So then I would have an argument with myself. Yeah. But it worked out really well. They had laughs, we had laughs, and everybody got the nerves out. It was great.
The legacy of the major rager, Cliff Burton. As talk turned to one of the fallen brothers from the Big Four, Cliff Burton, both guys shared some memories of the legendary Metallica bassist.
Growing up, my influences were, just so you know, we were friends. So I love what he did on bass because it was always innovative. I love what he did with the wah. I watched his bass solo every night because I thought it was just way out there. I love that he brought it back into it. It just was incredible. But the one thing that it gets me because on that tour that Cliff passed, it's always strange to me because we used to have this thing. We used to play both of our shows. The catering, you get something to eat before you get on the bus that night. So our thing would always be, after we're done, we're going to each buses, and we would say, one or the other would say, hey, maybe I'll see you later. And that night, I said to him, hey, maybe I'll see you later. And the last thing I remember Cliff saying as he left the room, turns back and goes, yeah, maybe I will. And then the rest is history. So that's just still, I mean, I know how much of an influence he's had on people, and he was amazing. I wish he was around just to see what Metallica would be right now. I would like to hear that. Imagine Cliff with Metallica right now, what he would have did to that.
The last time I saw him, I remember Dave and I went to go see Metallica. There was on Master of Puppets tour.
With Ozzy, yeah.
With Ozzy, yeah, in Rutherford, New Jersey. It kind of started we had just recorded the Peace Cells album for Combat, which is our label at the time, but major labels were starting to swoop around us, in particular Michael Alago, who signed Metallica to Elektra and signed Metal Church.
And you had just had lunch across the street from the United Nations.
Yes, you
came up with the answer.
It's not like you tell the story. But it was, and talking to him a little bit about writing, about the writing on the Master of Puppets record, and he mentioned that he didn't do as much, there wasn't as much on Master of Puppets as there was on Ride the Lightning. But Cliff was wonderful. I mean, we debuted Megadeth up in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and that's where our real home was. We lived here, but our real musical home was up there, and they would always come to the shows. Lars would always come down, and James came once in a while. Cliff would be around quite a bit. So a lot of just brotherhood moments around him.
He was definitely one of us. But he was innovative. I always say when I think of Cliff, I just said innovation, and the guy took the bass and went that way and tried everything, and I love that about him. But Metallica's doing okay right now.
Yeah, whatever happened to them after that?
Yeah. Rob's a great bass player. Rob's an incredible bass player. But it's great to have all these great players around. God rest his soul. We love you, Cliff.
Music is catharsis. An audience member drew a line from Frank's therapeutic outpouring in Altitudes and Attitude, all the way back to a deep-cut Anthrax tune, a powerful acoustic song written and sung by Frank from Anthrax's 1998 album, Volume 8, The Threat is Real. Bello talked about the origin of that song and his emotional connection to it.
It's a song I wrote, it's on an Anthrax record, but it's a hidden track. It's called Pieces. I wrote for my brother when he passed away. Again, this is cathartic. That's the way it was my therapy, and that's like in the beginning of it all. But I really appreciate you saying that, because it was a hidden track, and Anthrax was my bandmates. They were great enough to let me get that out and put it on a B-side. A hidden track on a record, and it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to my family. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.